Good afternoon. We're sitting here in my garage, my hot rod shop. My name's Johnny Capels, and I'm assisted today by cameraman Dave Thomas. Both of us are Indy Car racers formerly and also hot rodders. What's featured here on my engine hot test stand is my French Ford Flathead engine that I put 25,000 miles on in my roadster, which is right here on the car lift, and we'll get to it shortly. Did a major rebuild on it and broke it in here on the hot test stand, and I'm going to run it for you in just a short bit. The reason I took it out of the car was it's a standard size bore, which is 3 3/16, and I put a big bore one in. Both engines are identical in every component part. The cast aluminum French pans and the front covers and the special block that the French Flathead Ford V8 has. And all of the equipment inside and outside are all identical. All the tolerances are identical. It's just that the small bore one here that I've overhauled is 263 cubic inches with its standard bore, and the one I just put in the car and have 2,000 miles on is 3 5/16 plus 30 thousandths over bore for 291 cubic inches. So I wanted to run this one for you today, and Dave is assisting me. We're going to talk just a little bit about the engine on both sides of it and the component parts. The water system in the car is quite different than what you see here, but both engines have the Chevrolet W engine, the 38409 single water pump. This enables you to run a special system that I had in all my sprint cars on the race tracks, and that is a double pass radiator. The radiator in the car has no hoses or water tubes in the top tank. It's a two-pass thing, and everything comes off the bottom tank. But here on the little hot test stand, I run just a standard radiator and run two hoses from the cylinder heads right into a stock neck for this radiator to allow me to run the engine as long as I want to run it on the hot test stand. So all the component parts are the same. ISKI cams, and Offenhauser heads with the treatment done, the scat cranks, the big stroke, and the rods are from the French Flathead Ford, and Ross pistons and pins, and it goes on and on and on. And both engines are just run fantastic. The car has 27,000 miles on it. 2,000 of those are with the new big engine. 25,000 of those are with this engine. And this engine, like I said earlier, did a major on it, and I have it here on the stand and have run the camshaft in and the lifters in, and I'm going to start it with you. Dave and I are going to just walk around here from the right bank of the engine a little bit on the test stand. Dave, how about aiming down to that cast aluminum pan there? It's really the pan is identical to a 1935 to 48 Ford stamped steel pan, but it is cast aluminum and machined, and it's really a great piece. And for me to get this French Flathead engine, I bought a complete one that just came off the Dyno in France in 1992. They're truck engines, two-wheel drive French Simca trucking engines for the trucks, Army trucks, and the four-wheel drive. And that pan is off the two-wheel drive version of the Flathead. Naturally, it uses every gasket, every component, every nut, every bolt is all American thread, with the exception of the little nuts you see holding the exhaust pipe headers on the dyno. That particular thread that you can see with your naked eye is a 10 millimeter. So that's the only millimeter thing in the whole thing. The block is built just like a 35 to 48 Ford 59AB block, has the cast bell housing on it. A little novelty story about this French block. The man in Texas who's a Jeep dealer went over and had the opportunity to buy every bit of the inventory from Simca Motors, because Henry Ford, when he quit building these, he turned everything over to Simca, and then their engineers went and made it a much more modern engine by having a better block, better casting methods, better alloy. And then only to find out after he started selling a bunch to everybody on the block that the Bonneville Southern California Timing Association declared this wasn't an American engine because of the block. Naturally, it was made in France by a company owned 40% by Ford, but that didn't fly with the good old boys, so they couldn't run them at Bonneville. But it really is a fine heart to any Flathead engine because it's got things in it that Henry Ford didn't have to consider for reliability and longevity. As you see on my hot test stand, I have enough gauges here to measure the idle vacuum and measure the vacuum at 2,000 RPM, plus oil pressure, water temperature, and tachometer to know where I'm at. I idle these engines at 800 RPM, and I'm running that Edelbrock Super with two Charlie Price Vero Beach, Florida Holly carburetors, all reworked inside. Fine job that he does. The distributors are made up out of a Chevrolet, big block, little block, Delco distributor, machined down and geared to fit this engine. And then it carries a stock Chevrolet cap and rotor, and we remodified extensively the centrifugal advance so it has a starting crank up initial advance and centrifugal advance curve that's very suitable to the Flathead. But that's my Deuce Roadster Brookville body. The upholster on that car is a two-time Riddler Award winner and also Street Rod of the Year upholster. So I'm pretty proud of that car. Built the frame with stampings. As you can see, my placards over here, the one on the left, Dave, can you focus on that one? It just says for info and a specs bill sheets, call Johnny at this area code here, 317-345-3708, and I'll email you or mail you a 3.5-page build and spec sheet on that car. Has every part in it with the tolerances that it was put together. It's a 5-speed car, limited slip, quick change rear end, with all the right components. The body's painted on the inside with the same quality paint job you see on the outside. I wanted it that way, and that's what I got. And so the car has my special water system and a big K&N filter that fits down over the two carburetors. And I'm real proud of that water system because one day I took Ed Eskandarian to lunch down from his factory and came back and he said, show me your water system. So raised the hood and I explained it to him. He went in and got every employee out of his cam grinding factory and came out and we talked about it in the parking lot. It's quite unique. I never use the fan. If I'm driving on the street or the highway or anything like that, that's where I get my air. It's just a wonderful thing. So I've got two excellent engines here. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think we're getting close, Dave, here. We'll just crank this little engine up. Well, there you have it. Sounds like a rocket ship. It runs like a rocket ship in my car up above, and the one up there runs a little stronger just because it has more cubic inches. I'm really proud of these engines. I wish every hot rodder had a French block to start with, because he's got a long life engine ahead of him if he has that block. It's really, really magnificent to build a Flathead with that block. I wanted to build that 32 Roadster. I didn't want to put a Chevrolet and a Ford Roadster. I just felt that the very first engine at age 15, when I started driving race cars, the very first engine that my boss taught me how to build was the Flathead Ford, and I knew someday I might return to the Flathead Ford, and lo and behold, the Roadster I built, I've got a Flathead Ford in it. Naturally, it was cast and built in France, but I made a hot rod engine out of it right here in Indianapolis, and I feel like I did Henry a favor. I go chugging down the road at 80 miles an hour, cruising with the Lexus and the BMWs and everything with my 5-speed gearbox, and I'm just idling. I feel real good about the Ford Flathead being under the... I don't run side panels on the engine compartment for the simple reason I like that Flathead. I like to look at it, and I like other people to look at it. You'll see the exhaust system is quite extensive. It's 0.49 wall thickness stainless steel tubing, 1 3/4 diameter, and the primary pipes are 31 inches long on each side, going into a collector and then into a muffler with a carbon Kevlar heat shield. You can open the car door in shorts, lay your calves on top of that thing, and slide right out of the seat. Never burn yourself or anything else. That's part of the race car in me. I believed that I wanted to tune that engine in this way. The engine sounds like a big bad Chevrolet when you go roaring around the city or on the highway. It doesn't sound like a Flathead at all, just because of the exhaust system. I think that's a plus. Have a tough time getting around a little bit, and I thought, well, if I could find a good home for it, that'd make me happy. So I've got these placards right here, and you can see my Brookville Roadster right here on the internet, www.hmn.com/1773121, and click enter, and you'll open up to my big picture page there, and I've got, I think, a 19 picture slideshow. I'm glad I had the opportunity to run one of my engines for you. The engine naturally is also for sale, and I've got a radiator in my car. By the way, I'm telling you how it cools so well. It's 56 square inches smaller than the frontal area of a 32 Ford radiator, because I don't mount the radiator like Henry Ford mounted it in his old car. It's mounted like I mount all the radiators in sprint cars or midgets or anything else. You can pull the whole assembly off the front of the car with just 4 bolts and 2 hoses, which are in the bottom tank, no hoses in the top tank. Or you can take the grill shell off and go drive the car anywhere you want. And you can read about it. You can read about it on my spec sheet. You got any comments at all?
I think we're good, John. Thanks.
I think we're good?
Yeah.
Thank you. Dave Thomas, he's noted for rebuilding the city of Burbank streamliner that set all the records in 1952 at Bonneville. It's a beautiful car. He takes it all over and shows it everywhere, and former chief mechanic on an Indy car also. And we just kind of are in hot rods, all of us around here together, even though we have snow and ice instead of Southern California weather, but that's the way it goes. We get the job done, and I want to thank you for listening to my engine and listening to my descriptions of the engines. I hope you enjoyed it.